Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So just to make sure you are in the right place, this is Engaging Archival Interns in Community Archives, Bridging Technology and Tradition. And I'm going to be the moderator for this session. I'm going to read our biographies of our two wonderful presenters. And then if you want to save your questions for the end, and we'll take questions from the chat as well, Kelly will help us do that. So we have Dr. Vanessa Reyes. Dr. Reyes is an assistant professor in the Master of Library Science program at East Carolina University. She has over 15 years of experience working across diverse cultural and information institutions. Dr. Reyes also holds a PhD in Library and Information Science from Simmons College and an MS in Library and Information Studies from Florida State University. Her research examines the emerging field of personal information management, exploring how individuals organize, manage, and preserve digital information. Through her work, Dr. Reyes contributes to preserving digital heritage and addresses the pressing need for personal information tools that support users as they age. She is also experienced in personal and family archiving and documentation practices, facilitating how individuals and communities can safeguard their stories and histories for future generations. We also have Dr. Vanessa Irvin. Dr. Irvin is an associate professor with the Master of Library Science program at ECU. She's authored 3 books and over 60 peer-reviewed publications and presentations, and has been an invited speaker to over 30 panels and events. She has led grant-funded research projects exploring how heritage-based knowledge systems impact information-seeking behaviors and literacy practices in daily life. Dr. Irvin's work investigates libraries as collaborative communities for literacy justice for diverse and local indigenous populations. She's equally interested in the social informatics of informal learning and the evolution of library and professional practices with reference services and emerging technologies. Dr. Irvin serves as editor of the open access peer-reviewed journal, the International Journal of Information, Diversity, and Inclusion, where she manages an editorial team of 20 librarians and an editorial board of 35 LIS scholars worldwide, and she is the 2024-25 president of the Association for Library and Information Science Education.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. And I'll give you a flash.
Okay, sounds good. All right, praise you up. Okay, thank you everybody for being here. It's wonderful to join you on our second year of presenting about our grant project that we've been working on, and we're starting year 2 this summer. This will do its thing. There we go. Today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about our concentration that we recently developed. We're also going to talk about our grant, adopting digital technologies within community archives. We're also going to talk about mentorship, relationships. We also have one of our interns here, Jada Buford over there. So I just wanted to highlight that. And all about placing interns and involving community members and also an advisory board and how important they are within this kind of project.
Oh, I'm doing the introduction. So our program, the Master of Library Science program, we created an archives and cultural heritage concentration within our curriculum, and it officially launches fall of this semester of this year, fall semester of this year. The concentration aligns with our research areas with community archives, preserving personal records, and heritage-based research. So basically what we've done is we've revised our entire curriculum in the program. And so as part of that revision, we've added in the archives and cultural heritage concentration. So now we'll have 4 concentrations: public librarianship, school librarianship, academic librarianship, and archives and cultural heritage informatics. And the reason why we felt it was important to add this concentration is because in our work thus far, we recognize that part of the local culture in North Carolina is a lot of heritage-based and history collections that are embedded in public libraries of all sizes, especially in rural communities, as well as a lot of archival and historical work that's being done here. And so we feel like in Eastern North Carolina, especially, we really have to have that voice, heard. So here are some guidelines for the concentration is following these 2 areas of guidelines, the American Library Association, but also the Society of American Archivists. So these guidelines include For archival studies, selection, acquisition, and appraisal, arrangement and description, preservation, reference, and access, outreach, instruction and advocacy, management, administration, and stewardship of digital collections. So part of us creating this part of our curriculum, we've created courses that meet each of these areas. Is it still me?
If you want, she's all first.
All right, so this culturally informed scholarship, this is a look at what the archive and cultural heritage informatics concentration looks like. Our new curriculum will have 3 core courses where all the students in the program have to take, and that is Foundations of Library Science, Reference, and Management and Leadership. And then they go from there into their own individual concentration. So the core for this concentration is an introduction to archives and cultural heritage informatics, where they get that foundational information, theoretical information, archival arrangement description, research literacy, and community-based archives, which is a research methods course where they learn methodology about doing this kind of work from a culturally competent and heritage-based perspective. Then preservation management. And then the students can choose a digital elective, one of the 3, and then they are free to take 4 electives within the curriculum of whatever they find that are interesting. Some electives that we have, include, like, for example, genealogy in libraries, government publications, history of books, like that.
Sounds good. All right.
Don't let me take your slides.
Oh, it's okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about FOCUS, Faculty Organizing for Community Archive Support. And this is our collaborative grant with 9 other universities in the United States, where we're all working together to place students, graduate students in separate community archive sites. So there's different participating schools, and you can actually look us up. We have a website, and we're actually working on our institutional website right now, so moving over to the ECU side. But we have 9 different organizations that are doing the same thing. One thing I wanted to add also, that out of this collaboration, we have created our own archives concentration. We're placing 4 different students this fall in 4 different sites, possibly 5. And we're also going to be opening a community archives lab that supports research, the design and structuring of these courses that are community centric, but also supporting the community and their needs. And we're hoping for a lot of collaboration with Joiner and other sites locally that might need, heritage groups that might need support as well. And this is a map of our North Carolina. And one thing to notice is how spread out our students are. This is where our students, the little blue dots indicate where our students are on the map in the different counties. So when we're working with communities, we're hoping to capture the pockets of students that we have and being able to build relationships with those different sites. And so the purple is where we're located here in Pitt County. And these are our current sites that we're working with. We're working with the Caswell Arts and the Caswell County Historical Association. We're working with the Belhaven Public Library. They have a group called the Belhaven History Group. The Lumbee Tribe, they have the Indian Education Resource Center. And we're also working with the Pasquotank County Library. They have a heritage room within the public library. So we're excited about that. That's where Jada's gonna go. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, aside from technology and building relationship and placing first-year students, is the importance of building these building on the community-based knowledge that's already there, and this whole collaborative aspect. And I would love for Dr. Irvin to talk about that.
Okay. So what's really exciting about this is that we have been literally going out to the various areas and building on relationships we already have, and then meeting new people who hear about us and want to build relationship with us. So our focus is on, right, locality, like local relationships and things like that. So with, this, image is a site visit that we did into Milton, North Carolina, which is in Caswell County. So Milton and Yanceyville are within minutes of each other. And so they do a lot of local heritage, historical, archival work there. So this is at the Thomas Day Inn and Tavern, which is a historical site. And we're meeting with the community members who have lived there a long time for generations, and they're mapping for us everyone they know in the community and all of the movers and shakers and what those relationships and interrelationships are like. And so that is exactly what you're seeing here. So for disclosure, I have to say that these are all my relatives. Which is how we were able to get these sites. These are all my cousins. And so, but they are docents and cultural heritage workers in Milton and Yanceyville, North Carolina. And so they've been there for years, and our families have been there since, antebellum times. So they do a lot of work in that way. And so working with them has helped us to learn, how to like move with other groups and communities. So another example is, so this is Caswell County Historical Association and Caswell County Council of the Arts. So that's this site. That led us to a second site. So a second site was the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, and how we were able to connect with them was again through relationships. So what happened with that one was that I did a presentation at North Carolina Central, and one of the librarians who was in attendance, African-American librarian, and she lives in Pembroke, North Carolina. And so after that, this was a year ago, after that presentation, I just emailed and said, so nice to meet you, and that was it. Then when we started doing this work, I just connected with her and said, do you know anybody in Pembroke, la, la, la. And she said, yeah. She said, and she connected us with the lady who is the executive director of the Indian Education Resource Center. And she is Dr. Connie Locklear, and of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. And so then Reyes and I, when we're going out to visit and build relationship and get to know one another, or who are you, or who are you? Once again, the power of locality, right? So when I say my last name and then I say where my ancestors are from in North Carolina, then Dr. Locklear is like, well, no, it happened in Milton first. We mentioned Lumbee, and they were like, well, do you know so-and-so? So the lady in green, that's my cousin Twinkle. She's another Vanessa, but she goes by Twinkle. And so she's like, I know Connie Locklear. I said, you know Connie Locklear? She said, yeah, I know Connie Locklear. Next thing you know, when we go back to Pembroke and we talk to Connie, she said, tell her Vanessa Graves said hi. So I said, Vanessa Richmond Graves says hello. She said, oh my God, I know her. So like everyone, so these interconnections are really, really real, and they're really, really important. And so that was how we were able to, build trust and relationship. Not saying it is like ironclad, but the beginnings of it with solid sticks, right? And so this is what we mean when we're showing here, like building a network of community and mapping those sites, and we're mapping those sites through relationships. So in terms of Belhaven and what's the other one? I'm sorry.
Pasquotank.
And Pasquotank, yeah. So Pasquotank, how did we find out about Pasquotank?
Colleague mentioned it to me, and then I said, we need to go visit them, and then that was it. She said, I think there's something there, just have, they passed off the information, and we contacted them, and they said, we actually have a lot.
It was really great, yeah. And so that's what we wanted to share about
They
that.
contacted us. They
Yeah.
contacted our department for just reaching out, and we were able to make the call.
And that's the story for our fifth site that we haven't shared yet, which is the North Carolina Broadcast Museum. And he contacted us through somebody and somebody and somebody. And I love it. I'm like, this is how, as librarians and archivists, is how we, immerse into, local culture and community. Go ahead, this is you, Reyes.
Yep. So a lot of the things we do is when we go into these sites, we want to get to know what their needs are. And as you all know, when you're working with communities, they might have resources and they may not have resources. We really don't know what they have under the hood, as we say in a car, when you're trying to buy a car and you're figuring out what's there. So adopting digital technologies is really important. Sometimes they're iffy about it. There is an ethic component that we have to think about. There's also the whole accessibility. Who's going to sustain it? How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to do it? So we went in with the notion that there are needs. You have been keeping your records in a certain way, and we're trying to make this work for you. At the same time, if you need recommendations from us, then we will go ahead and provide those along with our students. But we want to make sure that our students are aware that they're there to preserve these records, make them accessible, care for them, and do as much as possible. They're representing us when they go out there. So they're leaving from our program with the adoption and knowledge of these digital technologies that are important, especially for a lot of these sites who want to make their collections digital. Yes.
I just want to share that on the flip side of that, another thing that we're sensitive to is making sure that the sites understand that we're not there to tell them what to do or how to do. Like, so for example, with the Caswell County Historical Association, they've been keeping their records since 1956. You know, so when you go into their museum, and all the records are there, and they're like, well, you know, we just haven't been doing it right. I said, well, you're doing something right. It's all here, you know, and so we also leverage local knowledge, right? And centering the local knowledge to make sure that they only involve themselves in technologies that they're comfortable with, you know, and that is sustainable for them within their context.
Exactly. And we are aware that digital adoption matters. A lot of the sites really want to make their information accessible, whether it's for their own community or for a wider audience. We've experienced that a lot of the sites are using either Catalog It, Omeka, and some are just using spreadsheets. So this is what we're going into. This is what we're working with, and we're going to try to make it work as much as possible in a sustainable way as we can, as sustainably as we can. But I will say that I feel like all of our sites are pretty open to some recommendations, and they're excited about the students, and they really want the help, and they really want them to learn as much as they're going to be learning from us too. So I think it's going to be an exciting mutual benefit for all of us. Also, we provide some guidance in terms of digital technology and best practices, and this is something that we do. And as practitioners, you know, we start with that assessment. So this summer, we're going to be deep in there doing this needs assessment. What is it that you need? How is it that our interns are going to be helping you in the best way possible? Do you need to standardize anything? How's your metadata look? Within the cataloging, with the constraints of your catalog, what is it that you want to accomplish? What have you accomplished that you haven't been able to accomplish? Encouraging training in the sense of have our student work with you to get them to know what your methods are and how you want them to carry out those roles. If you want them to do something that is creative and different, then we're here to kind of support that also and be as supportive as we can. We're trying to explore open source budget-friendly solutions. We're trying to offer things that are user-friendly. Omeka is a very user-friendly platform, and for smaller sites, I think it's a really great option. There's lots of other options right now that are wonderful, and we're open to those suggestions as well. And our goal is to really leverage that community engagement piece, as Dr. Irvin has been talking about, is to kind of find a way in the middle that makes sense, that actually creates the best option for them, but also making a contribution and coming together and saying, okay, how is it that we're going to make this better and meet your goal and make sure that we have a plan and that we are set to doing that within the next year. Another thing we didn't mention is that our archives interns are there for a year. It's very nice for relationship building to have a student in a space longer than a semester. They just barely get through the door when they're starting those first few months, and that adjustment period, and also building rapport, building relationship. So we've noticed that that year really makes a big difference, and we're quite excited about that and the sustainability that they're going to be able to offer. Now, there are some challenges and considerations. There are some resource constraints that we all know about. Staff training, there's a level of training that they may not have, or that we might have to step in with our students and kind of intervene, and that's what we're here. We're going to divide and conquer and be as supportive as we can with these different sites. We're also hiring 2 new faculty this semester. One of them will be working with us as well. So it's going to be 3 of us working with sites and trying to be there as we supervise and we provide support and assistance. And as I mentioned, all in support of long-term sustainability, being able to provide them with the best options and the best tools that fit their needs for the long term, for current access, for usability. It really depends on what those needs are going to be. Would you like to talk about the power of mentorship?
Okay. I also want to say too that, and to support what you were just saying with the
Yeah.
previous slide, is that the curriculum will be supporting, you know, so what the students are learning in classes and their coursework is going to also inform what they're doing at the sites, and they'll be sharing that knowledge with the people there, which is really great. Power of mentorship and archival studies. So we are fostering mentorship in terms of, we have our student interns, so they'll be mentored by us, the library science faculty, and they'll also be mentored by the professionals, the practitioners who are at the libraries and archival sites that they'll be assigned at. So we feel like this is important to have like this, you know, double opportunities, so that students have experience with professional growth. They gain confidence and support. They learn from other people in the local communities, so for networking and career opportunities. And also, as I was saying, in terms of them, you know, having practices that they learn in classes, that knowledge transfer and skill development happens with the interns as well as the local, our local people as well. So effective placement of interns. Well, I don't know this one.
Okay, I can go a little bit more. So I'm gonna use this as an exercise. No, it was here. Okay. So this is one of the topics that we were covering in our proposal. So funny enough, I was outside talking at our table, and somebody asked, well, how do I place interns? Like, how do I start? Like, I want interns to come to my institution. How do I get a hold, and how do I, what's my warning? Sorry, 5? Okay, okay. So I was like, okay, well, we've done this thing where we are actually fielding our interns within our program. So we know who these students are, we know what they've been doing, we know what their skill sets are. We've met the communities, so we know how they would react and how they would act and come together. So we're not just cold, what do you call that, cold call? We're not cold calling for interns. We're strategically reaching out to folks that we know, students that we know have experience, that have been working, that could align with the goals of that organization and their needs. And I will say we're very fortunate because most of our students have experience, like almost 100%. All of them have experience within the information profession. So that really helps us align, engage, and establish. It kind of helps us kind of get them there. But in terms of establishing clear expectations, responsibilities, we all have MOUs that we use, memorandums of understanding. I think that's really important when you're establishing a relationship with a community, that you know what those expectations are going to be, not just from the project, not just from your relationship with another, but what that student might accomplish, what needs they might fill, and how this mutual relationship is going to develop for the year or for the 2 years or for the 3 years. We're hoping for a very long time, because when we're building these relationships, we want them to be long lasting. And also, in terms of encouraging mentorship and skill development, We are pairing our mentors with each of us faculty members in each of their sites. So not only do they have somebody at the site that is working with them, but there is a faculty member that is going to be mentoring them. Also, our interns all take the Introduction to Archives course. So they will be actively either have taken the course or enrolled in the course during the time of the internship. So they're going to be fed with knowledge. They're going to have a support system. And we also have something else really cool is that there is a mentorship community that was developed by all of our faculty organizing for community archive support group. 9 universities, all of our interns are in a Slack group. And we'll be adding you very soon, Jada, so get ready to chat. And they all have meetings throughout the semester. They all talk about their experiences. There's, I believe, a postdoctoral student who has been working and coordinating these efforts at University of Arizona. And she's been trying to engage with them and have conversations and find out what needs they may have. And also they get together and put together conference proposals. Some of them will be presenting at the Society of American Archivists conference this year. Our funding also sends our interns to these major conferences. So we're funding students to attend this conference, Society of North Carolina Archivists, and we're also hoping for the Archival Education Research Institute conference. That's happening in Canada next year. Would you like to talk about this? Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, sure. So I think that the role of project advisory boards is really, really important. We're actually sitting with one of them over here, Jennifer Doherty. She's in our advisory board. I think it really gives us a sense of guidance, support, and this part right here, this relationship building is really important because we want to engage with Joiner, we want to engage with the archives and our community. So our advisory board is both community members, it is faculty, it is people that we work with, and also local constituents, local county chairwoman. Commissioner who is involved too. So we even have somebody who is guiding us within that sense, and she's really amazing. But so I feel like we have a very well-rounded group. Some of them work for the state archives, some of them work at other programs and other university archives as well throughout North Carolina. I think it helps us shape the culture. It helps us get to know North Carolina and the needs of the archives and the community here by not just looking at our own community and inviting folks from our group, but externally, because we want to support all of North Carolina and we want to get to know the rich community, because as you saw that map before, our students are all over. And so another challenge we have is that we're a very rural state and things are very far and spread apart. And so that also helps us really connect the dots with other members of that. So I really recommend having project advisory boards, especially if you're going to be doing something that's sustainable and that you want people to really engage. And that's actually presenting this work at the last Society of North Carolina Archivists, is how we engage in recruiting project advisory board members. During our meeting or during our presentation, they were like, if you need somebody to be a part of that board, because we were like, we're recruiting for the board. And they were like, I would like to help be part of the board. And I have and then one of them was like, I run the traveling archivist program. I would like to be a part of it. I'm like, yes, you will be a part of this. So it's just wonderful how you can engage others that are doing the same kind of work. And you're not, you're adding on to the richness of what they're already doing. And we're all sharing resources together. So that's exciting stuff. And I kind of talked about this already, so we can skip that part. Anything you want to add?
I do. I think y'all need to know about the money. So, so how all this comes together, this is a $1.1 million grant that covers 3 years. So what we're doing is each site gets $10,000 that is free for them to use. They get $10,000 per intern. So if they have two interns, that means they get $20,000. And that money is a contribution to the local community for them to, however they discern that they want to use for resources for their location and for their site. And then the students get paid, the internships are paid. And so they get paid for the whole year that they're there. And then also the students get, they get professional development. So the grant pays for their conference travel, registration, room and board, transportation, flights, all of it. Am I missing anything?
I think that's it.
So I think that's,
The mentorship community that they belong to.
well, the advisory board members, they also get compensated for their time. And so they, ECU, if you're an ECU employee, they can't, for legal reasons, they can't get the stipend, which is $5,000 per year, but they, that's transferred into professional development funds for them. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hi, yes.
I have a couple of questions, but I'll try and keep it.
Oh,
Can I ask something?
Um,
Can you, after they ask the question, can you repeat the question before you answer it? Just because the
Yes.
speaker's really bad about picking up the audience.
Okay.
So you mentioned a couple of topics that you were going to have the interns focusing on. Preservation, you talked about metadata, et cetera. I didn't notice anything about like conservation itself, and I feel like that's a key part of our profession that was missing whenever I was in school. And I had to seek that out through other professional development on my own. And I was wondering, it's something that I'm interested in teaching students. And I was wondering if that is something that you are interested in having as a part of this internship program.
So the question that was asked is, will we be having the topic of covering the topic of conservation in our archives curriculum?
Yes.
Yes, both in the intro to archives class and also in the preservation management. We're actually creating kits, archiving kits with Joiner Library. And we're gonna be mailing these kits that have scans of collections. They're gonna have condition reporting that they're gonna be doing. They're gonna have an, I call it the Amber Pen, but it's called something else. Where they're gonna be scanning for acidity to check to see what acidity their papers and documents have. And there's also gonna be segments of disaster planning because nobody ever thinks about an archive when disasters happen, but also advocacy planning for archives as well, which I feel that we don't often get to advocate for archives, especially when they have those certain situations. But this is introduced in the intro class, and then in the preservation management is where you really get into the meat and potatoes of being able to understand these conditions, mold containment, being able to understand when that starts, when to freeze, when to do all these different things. So yes, that is definitely going to be in there. And I pride myself in this because I was trained under Michelle Clunan, who is a chemist in the world of preservation. So I would never leave out that aspect. But thank you for mentioning it because it will be up on our slides next time. I think it's an important component of the work we do.
And also to your point, thank you, because as a faculty, we might want to maybe talk about retitling the course,
I think so.
to preservation, conservation, and management. That would make it clearer. Yeah,
Mhm.
so thank you.
Things like bookbinding,
Mhm.
learning how to just like do some paper mending and
Mhm.
things like that. Just the basic things that you encounter in both libraries and archives.
And especially within a local context, because right in local, and especially like rural communities, they're not gonna have like all of the bells and whistles. Their context is gonna be the bookbinding, right, and the things like that.
And that's actually a big problem in the profession because a lot of the programs defaulted to professional development workshops where they sit there and they do, oh, today we're going to learn about binding government docs. Today we're going to do condition reporting. Today we're going to do what to do in a natural disaster situation. And so you see this happening a lot, and it should be part of the curriculum. It should be embedded. And I think that it can be done. And it has to be done, especially the way that I'm trying to get something physical sent to them, because we're now dealing with an online world where we're teaching online. And how do we teach these practical, very visual, very experiencing in the moment type of things when we're so spread out and when we're online? Well, we definitely have to find these situations and these case studies and pull them out of the cupboards and try to bring them up, but we have to be very innovative. And so that's one of the challenges that we see, and I feel like that's probably also why a lot of these programs, like you mentioned, might not be covering them completely. And we need to also create partnerships with document centers that work with these types of efforts, which I think is also a very nice way to do it, so that these types of things don't get outsourced and that actually people in-house can take care of them. So thank you so much for saying that.
And I have one more question. I'm sorry if other people have questions. You can go first. So I work for an institution that's located in Winston-Salem. I saw that you have 2 blue dots in Forsyth County. Are you, at this point in the program, interested in having institutions that far away from here, from this campus?
Yeah, you mean in terms of sites?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we drive 3 hours, 2 hours to Pembroke, and we drive 2 hours, 2+ hours to Yanceyville. You know,
An hour and a half to,
Elizabeth City.
right,
Yeah,
and Belhaven,
yeah,
so,
yeah, we're on the road.
yeah. So we have 2 options too. I wanted to separate the 2 options. We have our community archives that we work with, but we also have students that might want to do an archives internship. And that could be anywhere. I mean, the same, like, it won't be the same component where we're offering the same
Within the context of the grant.
exactly
Right.
within the context of the grant, but our program and our lab does support that.
Yeah, in the curriculum, we have an internship course, so if students want to take an internship
Mhm.
as an elective, they can do that.
They can.
Absolutely.
So we would love to partner with you if you would like to have an intern.
Love that.
It might not be this term,
That's okay.
but it'll be very soon, so don't worry. Interest is coming in quite quickly.
Yeah. And,
I was just curious, you said that interest was coming in quite quickly. Is there a minimum criteria that you have for organizations to be able to work with you? Because I know that the grant probably has specifics like for them to be a part of it.
Yes, nonprofit status is the first. We want to make sure that these organizations are nonprofit organizations. If they're working with us with the Community Archives Grant, that they are fully purposed to work with community, local history. And I would say that, other than that, they have to have the need, you know, the need to want to work with somebody and develop some kind of relationship, and be willing to stick with us.
and that's a really good point. I'm sorry, y'all can't see me. My knee has started to speak its mind. So, but, that's really an important point because with every site that we've gone to so far, you know, they have really expressed the needs. Like, for example, with Caswell County, they want to digitize they have like books and books, volumes and volumes and volumes of stuff from the 1800s to now. So they want to digitize all of that. So that's right. Then with the Lumbee, they have disaster preparedness needs because they've lost archival artifacts in the recent past due to tornadoes and hurricanes and things like that. So they've expressed that need. So everybody has a certain need. And then, like, for example, Pasquotank, they have a whole air-conditioned, gorgeous room like this, you know, space for their local history collection. But they don't have anybody to take care of it. You know, so their need is literal, you know, librarian type of skills, but also figuring out what should be there, what doesn't, and that kind of thing.
I mentioned the money aspect of it, but with students when they're placed, how does that work out with, like, do they receive a stipend for housing and food, transportation? Like, how are students supported financially when they're placed?
So they're treated, so for ECU, they're treated as a graduate assistant.
Okay.
And so our program is online. So we don't have to worry about like the housing aspect and things like that, but they get a straight up stipend that they get paid every biweekly that equals the amount, you know, that ECU has designated as the maximum for graduate assistants. And so, and then the other financial piece that they benefit from is that when they travel for conferences during their time with us, that's totally covered by the grant.
Okay.
So their flights, they get per diem, I think.
They get per diem. That's the only time anybody on the grant gets per diem. Yeah.
And they get registration for the conference
Mhm.
and lodging.
I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions.
That's okay.
So in the past, I've had interns from ECU, from Salem College, from Upstate, NC State. A lot of them have been graduate students. I've had undergraduate students as well, though. And what I've noticed and the trends of this is that for most of the graduate MLS students, there's a core set of goals that they have to meet, objectives in it, which are pretty loose. And they have to do, 120 hours. So we'll sit down and we'll say, okay, what are you interested in doing? How do you want to meet these project goals? And then we usually pick like 2 or 3 bigger projects that they work on during that 120 hours. With this, are you guys planning, it seems like you're working more towards having a set project in place before they even come. Is that what I'm kind of gathering from this?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because, this kind of flips that model a little bit in terms of within the context of the grant, right? So students are literally gonna go to help an established organization or collection meet the needs that they've identified. Now, if they take the regular internship course that we have in our curriculum, then that's the model you're talking about where they, that is our regular internship course is set up that way.
I like the idea of having the preset project. I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get bigger eyes than their stomachs
Agreed.
with everything. And
Yes.
it can be hard to meet all of those goals, honestly, in a short amount of time.
And we're considering the year, but also that these students are traveling, but they're not expected to be there all the time.
Mhm.
They know that we are an online program and there's gonna be hybrid options.
Mhm.
So it's not like the student's gonna be there constantly, and there's only so many hours in the week that they're gonna be there for. So we've all entered the mutual understanding that students are traveling, that they are online, and they have lives. So there's a balance there, and our sites are pretty understanding, and I think they're just really excited just to get someone through the door.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
This sounds really comprehensive. Well, you have a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're having a good time.
We are. This is really exciting. And we're also working a lot with the history department and the public history. So that's a really big thing. We're not only building community with our local archives and such, but we're also building within ECU,
That's
with the
true.
library, with the archives, with the history department, with the public history folks,
And
with
adult education.
adult education. And so we're really trying to make sure that everybody feels that they can be a part of this too. And this is not just for us, but for everybody who's interested to be a part of it. So it's really exciting. Yes.
What prompted this concentration? Was it just a need that kind of grew out of another, like department or out of history department? Like what prompted the need for the?
Well, it started with a colleague who's no longer with us, Lindsay Maddock, and she's an archivist. And she was on our faculty for 2.5 years. And she came in and conversations that she and I were having in our first year was about noticing that there were a lot of embedded public history collections, a lot of historical societies and heritage museums and things like that in Eastern North Carolina particularly, and then in the state at large. And so we were like, this program needs an archives concentration. Andre, Dr. Reyes, a year later, she joined our faculty and she's an archivist. And so with the two, with Lindsay and Reyes as archivists, I'm a cultural heritage informatics person, and we came together and we put it together. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for the presentation first. So I'm curious about how Hurricane Helene may have impacted your partnerships with, the western half of the state, and how, if all, you've had to pivot based on that event.
So you wanted to?
Sure, yeah. So We are working, so I'm part of the SHRAB group, which is the State Archives Advisory Board. And we also work with them in the sense that they support the Traveling Archivist Project. And so they have already built a lot of community with them. And they really did take a big hit this year with being able to have even, I think that the needs that they had were outside of our own research funding and the funding that the Traveling Archivist Project even had. And we realized that it's gonna take years of effort to be able to work with these spaces. I know that there are lots of funds that SNCA has. I know they went around and they started to fundraise and do a bunch of things to be able to support this region. But in terms of us, we would love to build relationships, but we want to make sure that we have all the tools and belts and whistles that we'll need to support a disaster site, because there's a lot of loss, just a lot of loss. Do you want to add anything to that?
Only thing I would add is, in terms of us as a program, that was last semester, yes. We had about 30 students who were affected, so our students in the western part of the state who were affected. I don't know how, but it was complicated. There were some students in ENC too, Eastern North Carolina, who were affected as well. And so we, as a faculty, we just had a really triage type of approach to addressing student needs. So Dr. Seibert might, I don't want to put you on the spot, but she's a member of our faculty, library science faculty too. So if you want to chime in, feel free. And the reason why I'm kind of putting her on the spot is because we really did work collectively to address those students' needs. So our program is about, on any given day, about 225 students. And so even though it's just 30 students, we were, on it. And Lindsay Maddock at the time, she created a spreadsheet, and we had every student listed, their contact information, who contacted them, what their status was, are they okay, what do they need in terms of more time for coursework, extension, whatever it was that they needed. And so it was a combination of emails, text messages, all of those kinds of phone calls to people. So if we had a relationship with a student leader who had the emails and phone numbers of all the students, could you call so-and-so and see? So, the notes would say so-and-so called so, like the whole chain of it. We responded to our students in that way. And so by the end of the semester, we were able to account for everyone, make sure everyone was okay, that they had the accommodations that they needed for coursework and et cetera. And I think we had maybe 3 students that by January, we had everybody, we had all the ducks in a row. So it was, Dr. Seibert, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the 3 of us and there's 4 more of our colleagues, we really did work collectively to have that happen.
And we also made sure that they had resources from ACU, because a lot of them didn't know where to find those resources.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's about building. We know that this community is quite small. We know that we're going to know each other and that we're going to be colleagues when they graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take care of, we wanted to make sure that we were taking care of our community, because that's the big thing with, I feel with our department, is that we want to build a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was just a way of making sure that we were taking care of people within us. So.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I will say I was really proud to be a part of the faculty when we all had phone trees. We all had messages shortly after, whether it was on a phone or a computer or an email, that we were trying to, so-and-so, has anybody heard of so-and-so? We really came together. So it was really a giant effort. And I think, quite honestly, we were the fastest acting program in all the college to get a hold of our students. I think.
We want to bring in the humanistic aspect of it, because I think that especially with asynchronous online programs, people automatically think that we're hands off and that we're just throwing stuff up on campus and that's it. like Jada will tell you, like, we are very, very in contact with a lot of our students, and we want to make sure that our students remember, and even more so than actually being in the classroom, we take the extra step to get to know them on a personal level and build that community and have that human element within it. So as soon as that happens, like, we just all buckle down and we have all started to communicate of like, where is this student? Is she okay? Is he okay? And like type of thing, so.
I was just gonna say, I commend you all on like being honest and like identifying your limitations and like in regards to the grant, being able to like actually go out there and help the archives and things, because I think, you know, because North Carolina does get hit with natural disasters and things like that, that too many organizations sometimes try to be involved in some of the cultural institutions and then they actually create a burden. I mean, I'm sorry if anybody's been involved with Princeville, but Princeville is the one I always think of, and it, you know, they have this amazing history. They know their history. And ECU's been the first to be like, here, we're gonna give you something that we created for you because of your history. And it's like, well, they know their history, and sometimes we mean well, but then we create a burden for them to take care of. And I think that's kind of happened with them a couple of times. Like like, here, we're gonna give you this historical thing we created for you, and then it gets destroyed by a hurricane, and then they have to clean up the mess from it and things like that. So I like the way that you all are doing this approach, where it's like, if the organization's like, no, we got this, like, it sounds like you guys,
Yeah.
it's like they have to identify a real need, and then you all are recognizing your limitations on how much you can help and what resources you can provide.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important.
We have a few minutes left if anybody has any other questions or comments.
You mentioned that it's kind of asynchronous between being in person and doing things digitally. How many hours in a year, long-term, do you expect students to be in person and also digitally or remotely working with these sites?
With the sites? Yeah, so they should be doing 10 hours a week. And they can make arrangements with the site, for the people who are at the sites, the local heritage, experts there on how they, manage that. So it could be that they go in and work 2 days for 5 hours, or I don't know, whatever schedule they set up that's in person, or it might be a hybrid model where, you know, they may agree with the site to do some of it online and then some of it in person. One site, the North Carolina Broadcast Museum, that's a total remote internship. We just hired a student yesterday for that one. So that's very exciting. So I think she's in Charlotte somewhere, and the museum is in Raleigh. You know, so she'll be working with them and helping them because it's a totally remote, at their request. That's what they want. That's what they need, because everything they do is online. Yeah.
And so the 10 hours per week, is that for the academic year or for a calendar year?
That's the academic
Academic.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for
Vanessa.
coming. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you for having us and for being here.